The following broadcast is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network.
Golf Talk Live is sponsored by the iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Here's Andrew to tell you more about our sponsors.
iGolf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. And Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, including reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top teaching professionals, all designed to help you improve from tee to green. Welcome to Golf Talk Live with your host, Ted Odorico. Join Ted each week as he speaks with some of the best in golf. This week's special guest will join us a bit later. But first up is another great discussion on Coach's Corner. So let's introduce tonight's Coach's Corner panel.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Season 13 of Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. Got a great show for you tonight. Joining me this week on the Coach's Corner panel, of course, are two great friends, John Hughes and Jon Decker, and I'll tell you about both of them here in just a moment. And then plus golf fitness expert Bob Forman is going to be joining me with some more great fitness tips a little bit later on in the broadcast. And then finally, to wrap things up tonight, I'm going to be joined by this evening's featured guest, Miranda Turner, CEO of MGI Golf Inc., leader in electric caddies and motorized carts. She's going to be joining me on the second half of the show, so I hope you stick around for that. If you'd like to watch this week's show or any of the previously aired episodes, visit our iGolf Sports YouTube channel or on Spotify.com. You can also listen to the audio version in Spreaker.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe to the iGolf Sports channel and get notified as new episodes drop weekly. Are you looking to step up your game, perhaps a little bit? Then become a premium member on golftipsmag.com. We have 3 membership levels available, silver, gold, and platinum, designed to fit every budget. And by joining, you'll gain access to premium content such as the latest golf tips from our top 25 instructors, golf news, equipment product reviews, plus top travel destinations just in time to book your next buddy trip. In addition, you'll receive special discounts from some of our premier partners like Cardio Golf, ShotScope, True Linkswear, Encore Golf, Sky Caddy, and the Indoor Golf Shop, just to name a few. Many more on the way into the process as well. So we're looking and excited about that. So don't wait. Register today at golftipsmag.com. All right, we're going to get into tonight's Coach's Corner. Let me introduce the guys, and we'll get into tonight's discussion. First up, John Hughes, PGA Master Professional and the past president of the North Florida PGA section, and a recipient of the 2013 PGA of America's Professional Development Award. And in 2009 and 2023, he was the North Florida PGA Teacher and Coach of the Year, and a Golf Digest Best in State Instructor in 2023 to present. And he's also a Senior Contributing Editor and Top 25 Instructor with Golf Tips. Also on the show is John Decker, Director of Instruction at Medallion Club in Columbus, Ohio. He's also a Senior Contributing Editor and Top 25 Instructor with Golf Tips as well. And in 2025, he was the Southern Ohio Teacher of the Year and author of 2 books, Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, and Fairways to Heaven, One Shot at a Time. And he's also available for public speaking upon request. So, guys, welcome back to Coach's Corner.
Good to see you both.
Thanks, Dan.
So we're going to talk about, as I was just mentioning to both of you guys on the air, again, thank you for joining this evening. We're going to talk about hitting or how to really avoid hitting fat and or thin shots in golf. And those seem to be pretty common with a lot of our amateurs out there. So really to avoid hitting fat and thin shots, we want to focus on maintaining, obviously, some consistency with posture and swing plane and a lot of other things that we're going to get into. But I'm going to let everybody know, for those that maybe aren't as familiar, just sort of a little understanding of what I mean by when I say fat and or thin shot. So first off, fat shots typically occur when the club hits the ground significantly before the ball, resulting in a low, heavy strike. And thin shots, of course, is the opposite, occur when the club strikes the ball too high on the club face, often resulting in a low, skidding shot with reduced distance and control. So we're going to talk about that. I'm going to start in the order that I introduced you guys. So, and I want you to be specific into the point that I'm going to give you so that we don't get too far ahead of ourselves. So some key tips to avoid fat and thin shots. John, the first one is, let's talk about posture, maintaining sort of a consistent posture, because this leads to both really thin or fat shots. Talk about that, what we mean by that, and what are some things, maybe a drill you might want to throw in there to help maintain that posture.
Sure. First off, thanks as always, Ted, for the opportunity. John, great to see you again. Hope things are going well for you. Posture is very simply, in my book, from your belt up and how you're balancing your spine over the rest of your core. Some people like to take their cores and forward thrust them. The early release, we're hearing a lot about that. That can cause some fat and thin shots. Being too much on your heels or too much on your toes can alter the spine angle. One of the really cool drills that if you can do it, it's not necessarily putting your posterior end against the wall so much as can you put your head against the wall, or can you put your head against some kind of prop so that you can keep it there and understand, hey, as I make my turn, my head isn't coming up, because that is what most amateurs are doing. They're coming up and out of their posture, unlike a tour pro who stays in their posture. We may even see them come down to get the golf ball. Won't get too specific with all that, but the common cause that I see posturally is people are way hunched over, and then as they swing and try to make a stab at swinging at the ball, from the waist up gets so tall and their core gets pushed out towards the ball, that's going to lead at the end of the day to the low point of your golf swing, which we'll probably talk a lot about, I have a feeling.
Yep.
That low point's never going to be consistent from a verticality standpoint of view.
Yeah, well said. And yeah, we see a lot of things. The other thing too is we see a lot of poor shoulder tilt. We see quite often people will swing the club and they'll rotate their shoulders, more around their body. And again, also lifting out of that posture as well. So there's a lot of different things. Of course, we can talk about that, and we'll get into a few things here in a moment. So John Decker, let's talk about controlling the weight shift. That's another thing as well. We see a lot of swaying, and that, again, goes back to what John was talking about posture and that. But talk about that. Again, a proper weight shift can also lead to some fat and thin shots as well. So maybe touch on that.
Well, Ted, again, thank you for having us on the show. And John, as always, I look forward to being on with you. I think the weight shift is very important in the golf swing. And to me, it all starts, and John kind of mentioned it a little bit, is getting your weight in the balls of the feet. It starts there to be in an athletic position, because when you play golf, you are playing golf on one leg. You start out with all of your weight in the balls of your feet, but you go back and you turn into your right hip, and you're turning and rotating back into the right hip. And then you transition and rotate into the left hip. Now, obviously, this is if you are a right-handed golfer. And so the weight shift and that movement of going into the right and going into the left, that timing is the weight shift and transition is really the most important sequence that you have in the golf swing. And if you catch yourself playing on two legs where you're hitting the ball, and like John was saying, you losing your spine angle. So you're coming into the ball, you're losing your spine angle. You've got basically both weight on both feet, so that when you're hitting the ball, your right foot's on the ground and your left foot's on the ground. You're now hitting the ball only with your arms and hands, and this is going to lead to a lot of fat and thin shots. So if you look at the elite golfer who is right-handed, when they're hitting the golf ball, they have transferred and rotated all of their weight around their left hip. Their right hip, the only thing really touching the ground from their right foot is, they might have the toe and maybe a little bit of the ball of the foot on the ground. And then as they go through, all of that weight comes off, and their tip of their toe is barely touching the ground. That is the sign that someone has transferred all of their body weight. And I was always taught, and the way that my mentors have taught me in the past, is when you hit the golf ball, you hit it with your body weight, and you hit it with the rotation of your body weight. And if you don't have that rotation where you're going into the right hip and in the left hip, and you're playing on two legs, then you're essentially hitting the ball just with your arms.
Yeah, again, a great point. And, we see so many of our amateur players do a lot of what you guys are talking about in the sense that they're not using the body correctly. They're out of sequence in a lot of cases. And this leads to a point that John Hughes touched on here just a second ago, and that is really to understand the low point in your golf swing. I guarantee it, just from watching up and down the range, there's a lot of folks that I can tell just by how they're setting up to the ball that they have no idea where the low point in their swing is. And too often we see the ball moved either way too forward. I'm talking about iron shots here now, or too far back. And ultimately that creates a lot of problems. So John, let's talk about how do we identify the low point in our swing, and how do we make sure that we're addressing the ball correctly so that low point is in the correct place in order to make good contact.
So let's talk about what low point is not. Low point is not on the ninth hole you getting so low that you got to tell somebody about how low you are. Low point is not about how high you get either, because the higher you get, the lower you're going to go. With all comedic aside, low point is basically the point. Think of everything as a pendulum, and a pendulum swings in an arc. Mm-hmm. The bottom of that pendulum arc is a low point where it is flush and 50%. Let's call it there. And you can always go forward, you can always go backwards, but there's your low point. We are not swinging vertically like a pendulum. We're actually swinging on an inclined plane, if you want to use that term. So our low point is going to be based on A, how long your club is, B, not only how long your club is, but also the loft of your club, and C, not necessarily ball position so much as when you combine those two, how does it alter the center? The low point is not at your spine most of the time. Bobby Clampett did a really good study for his master professional thesis years ago, and what he showed everybody, and everybody went, wow. With a wedge, Tour Pro's low point, meaning at that very bottom, was actually 4 to 4.5 inches in front of where the ball was in someone's stance. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think amateurs get a little bit confused. They think of low point as ball position. It's not. You're trying to put the ball in a position based on what you're trying to do. Wedges, scoring irons, you're trying to hit that ball first, and the low point's actually in front. That's why you see these big pelts of divots flying during tour events, because they've reached the low point in front of the golf ball. With fairway woods, with hybrids, you're trying to strike the ball almost dead at the low point. Mm-hmm. Is it okay to have a little bit of turf in front, a little bit of divot in front? Yeah, based on what you're trying to do, but also based not only on your swing arc, but the angle of attack, as well as the path of your club. When you have a quote-unquote outside the in or over the top, you're coming in more steeply, so that angle of attack can actually alter the low point based on the club you have. For driver, your low point is 4 to 4.5 inches behind the golf ball. When we're talking about, hey, you're trying to hit up on the ball, for that to happen, the low point's got to be before you strike the golf ball.
Right.
If your low point is actually hitting the golf ball with a driver, it's not a low point. Most likely you're coming in very steep from the outside, and that's what's causing your fades. That's what's causing your pull hooks. So low point, let's be very clear with this, is not your ball position. It is where the bottom of the swing arc is, not based on verticality, based on the incline of the plane, the length of that plane, and the direction the plane is attacking the ball on.
Well said. So let's just, excuse me, sort of water this down a little bit for our listeners so that they fully understand. So with irons, typically you want the low point to be in front of the golf ball. For driver or certainly longer fairway woods, you want the low point to be in front of the golf ball. Is that correct?
Just barely, as far as longer clubs, hybrids, longer irons. Most people are trying to lift those clubs anyway. And as soon as you lift, you've already created your low point. You're lifting the club from that low point.
Right.
I talk to my clients about the word through. Can you hit through the golf ball? And when you're hitting through the golf ball, a great example is making a practice swing. Where does that club brush the ground? That is the low point. Mm-hmm. And based on the length of the golf club, that low point can be very much in front of the golf ball. It can be barely in front of the golf ball. It could be right at the golf ball. If the more highly skilled you are, the more you can control that low point. Is it controlled by ball position? Sure. It's also controlled by a lot of other things. When people come to me and say, I want to be consistent, that is what they're talking about. They just don't know the definition to it. And being able to give them a simple drill like a shaft extension drill, give them a simple drill, putting a ball on a tee with your feet together and just swinging with your arms and hands. You can establish the low point of your swing arc and start feeling where that is. And then going from there, adjusting ball position, adjusting the club, adjusting the angle of attack based on what you're trying to do, what kind of shot you're trying to hit.
Again, well said. Mr. Decker, let's touch on these two areas here. Also affects whether or not we're hitting fat or thin shots, and that is ensuring that we have number one, a proper grip, and also proper stance. These both can affect whether or not you have a fat or thin shot in your repertoire. So we want to make sure that those are correct as well. So maybe you could touch on both of those if you wouldn't mind.
Well, when you mention the word fat and thin, the very first thing I check as an instructor, and really with any player, I have a lot of collegiate players I work with, and the first thing I look at is their grip. Your grip is going to control the club face. And if you have a poor grip, then you're going to have to manipulate the club in some way to be a high-level player. And I see people who are really good players who have poor grips, but I never see a great player with a bad grip. Great players have really good grips, and that gives them ultimate control and allows the body rotation, which I talked about earlier, to really power the swing, and the club just comes to where, like John was saying, the low point, the club just finds that low point. You don't have to manipulate it. But if you have a poor grip, you have to create some manipulation. So the grip is the first thing that I look at. I'm going to strengthen someone's grip more often than I'm going to weaken someone's grip. Not always. And sometimes I get students who have a strong, they may have a weak left hand and a strong right hand, or they may have, or they may have their hands in a position to where their connection of their hands is not right. So there's a lot of factors in that. But the main thing I look for are the V's going to the right shoulder, and that's going to give them a slightly stronger than neutral grip. That allows them to rotate with no manipulation. You mentioned the stance as well. Stance has a lot to do with your club face and has a lot to do with the low point, ultimately leading to fat and thin shots. So if you have a stance where if you're a slicer, a lot of times you'll see slicers. I see slicers who aim way left, but I also see slicers who aim way right. So if you have a slicer who aims their feet way right, then that means their upper body, their shoulders, and their arms, and ultimately their hands are trying to do everything they can to get that club back, going toward the target, and they get stuck at the bottom. They're just literally drive the club into the ground. They can't rotate through because they have their body aiming one way and their swing going another way. That is a very common mistake that I see. But alignment is important. But to me, it all starts with the grip. If you get someone's grip in the right position, so if I get a slicer who's swinging way left and I change their grip, the first thing I say to them is, you're going to start hitting the ball to the left. That's good news. I can't take a slicer and turn them into a straight ball hitter. I have to take a slicer and teach them how to pull the ball. And then once I match up their ball flight with their grip with their swing path and get their ball going where their swing's going, then I can start working on their path. And a lot of times you're tweaking your alignment, your distance from the ball, all of these factors. I had a really good player that I'm working with today. His feet were lined up properly. His knees were lined up properly. His hips were lined up properly, but his shoulders were open. And he said, he was giving me the information before I saw him hitting some balls. He goes, I'm pulling a few shots to the left, and my driver's kind of leaking to the right. I shot 2 under, but I'm just off a little bit. And it was a matter of just tweaking his shoulders, and then he just started puring it. And that's what you do with players. Even really good players get off just a little bit. If one of those things gets off, it starts a domino effect, and then that leads to inconsistency, and then your confidence goes down, and that's when you start playing poorly.
Yeah, well said. Let me just ask you a follow-up on stance a little bit, because I think a lot of people are maybe a little confused about this. And I know there's obviously going to be some variances. Is it typically, we've always sort of heard over the years, and I'm talking about iron shots. We'll leave the longer clubs out of this for a moment, but particularly your iron shots, where typically your feet are about shoulder width apart. Is it better to be a little wider or a little narrower? Will that also affect whether or not you're going to hit shots? And does height make a difference on that factor as well? So what I'm basically asking you is, depending on your height, does that make a difference of whether you're maybe standing with your feet a little bit wider than shoulder width or a little bit narrower? Does that also potentially affect whether you're going to hit shots fat or thin?
Yes, that's a great question, because it's built. The first thing, like when I worked at Grand Cypress, we used the computer model that Dr. Ralph Mann invented, and the tour players don't have the same width stance on every shot they hit. So with their wedges, they get their feet closer together. With their middle irons, they're at shoulder width, and with their longer clubs, like their driver and fairway woods, they're wider than shoulder width. And that's going to affect your center of gravity. The wider I make my stance, the more my center of gravity is going to move to my right as a right-handed golfer. And so that means, like John was talking about the bottom point, that's going to move my bottom point more back. If I get my feet closer together, like in chipping, then I'm going to get my bottom point more forward just by putting my feet closer together. So if I want to lower my ball flight, I narrow my stance. If I want to hit a knockdown shot, I get a more narrow stance. If I want to hit the ball higher in the air, like over a tree, I'm going to widen my stance. So you don't play golf with just a one-size-fits-all, I'm going to always be shoulder width apart, because if you do, the only thing that you're really going to be able to hit well are your middle irons. Your short irons are going to be fat and thin, and your long clubs, you're going to lose all your power. So width of stance, in my opinion, is the most under-taught thing that I see from instructors. A lot of times I look at them, they're working on all these other things, and I'm like, just get their stance width right, and they're going to start hitting the ball more solid. So I think that's a great point you just brought up.
Yeah, and that's the reason why, because I get asked that a lot too, and I agree 100%. I think that it varies depending on the shot that you're going to be hitting and what club you're using. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be a great difference in a lot of cases. I mean, between a 7, a 6, and a 5 iron, we're not talking a great distance, but again, it does make a difference, and it also moves the low point in your swing, the wider or narrower your stance is. So that's something to also to factor in as well.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes, I'm coming back to you. We're going to talk about swing plane a little bit more. Obviously, we need to maintain a consistent swing plane throughout the swing. A lot of times we either see people very steep or very shallow, which also can lead to fat or thin shots. So talk about the plane. And again, does the plane change? Because again, we've always, heard in the past people say, well, I'm a taller player, so I'm going to be swinging a little bit more upright. And yet I've also heard players that are tall say, well, I still kind of swing a little more around my body. So let's address that. Talk about that. How does it affect fat and thin shots? And is there a one size fits all when it comes to swing plane?
So I'm going to answer the last question first, and that answer is no. Everybody's going to fit into a little slightly different swing plane. To give some generalities, and I'll use the pen for an example. The longer this pen is, as in a driver, the flatter you're going to set up the club. What most people think is swing plane, if my body's here with my hand, is that this pen's going to extend on basically the same line. So when we're talking about one plane swing, that's literally what we're talking about. If my fingers were my body, we're trying to swing on that one plane, whether it's driver that's a little flatter, your shorter clubs are a little more vertical. So your swing plane is going to change based on what kind of club you're hitting. Now, let's talk about path and plane, because I think that's where amateurs really get their heart set on doing certain things, but because of physicality, fitness, that kind of thing, they may not be able to do it. And to John's point and various points I've always made on this program, are you set up to actually have this club work on that plane? Not necessarily in the backswing, but definitely as the club is approaching the ball to reach impact. If this plane stays here, but it's coming more from the outside across you and in, it becomes more vertical. That's just what happens. The catchphrase now with a lot of people, I got to flatten my swing. I gotta shallow it out. What they're really talking about is bringing it this way. Either one of those can create fat and thin shots based on all the things we've talked about so far: low point, stance width, hands and grip. All those things are going to determine some of these things with playing. The real key here is to understand that the steeper this club comes into the ball, you're gonna come in steeper. You're gonna make bigger divots in front if you're getting all the way through the golf ball. If that ball position's off, if anything's off, most likely you're going to hit fat shots simply because it's coming in so steep and you're committed to make that swing. I see more fats happen than anything else. If someone recognizes that, you show them a video, wow, I'm coming in really steep. They may start trying to lift. And as they start trying to lift with that vertical across plane, now all of a sudden, as I said before, you've reached the bottom. Now from here, all you can do is go up. And that's what's going to cause your thin shots. At the end of the day, think of the golf ball. If you're hitting the top, you're hitting it thin. If you're hitting behind it, you're hitting fat. You're hitting chunky shots. Is there one cause for either? I think we've been very clear, but in a lot of different directions, there's multiple reasons why that can happen.
Yeah. And the trick is really why it's so important to work with a teaching professional is to find out and let them help isolate where the area is that you're, struggling with the most. Because again, just the 4 or 5 points that we've been talking about tonight, we see a lot of amateurs out in the range and they're tinkering around with their golf swing that by the time they get out on the golf course, they're so messed up because they've changed the grip, they've changed their stance, they've shallowed out or steepened their angle of attack. And, and they've moved their body position in such a way that the low point is all over the place. One time it's here, one time it's there. And so there's no consistency. And this is why it's important really to have that professional set of eyes watching and helping you identify and getting you as Decker, as you talked about, getting you in the proper setup to start things off. And John, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I just want to follow this up with John said, hey, he works with a lot of collegians, a lot of elite. I have too. I gave that explanation based on the vast majority of people who are watching this podcast. You're amateurs. You can hit a fat and thin shot when you're coming in too shallow. Mm-hmm. We see that all the time, particularly if the club's caught behind you. That can create just as fat or just as thin a shot from a really, really good player. Yeah. So what I see, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, you probably see it too, when we're trying to get that very vertical, steep swing shallowed out, you can actually overdo it and get it so shallowed out that it gets so stuck. All you can do is manipulate your hands, and wherever you manipulate those hands is going to determine fat or thin.
Yeah. And John Decker, of course, I'm talking about now. Maybe you could talk a little bit about equipment, particularly, obviously, again, the irons, because that plays a factor as well. If you're not properly fitted and you're, laying those clubs a little flat on the ground and you're not really laying them correctly, that's going to also create some issues as well, including fat and thin shots, correct? So give us the argument there, or present the argument and the solution for not having properly fit equipment and what I'm referring to.
Well, I think there's a lot of factors there, Ted. Number one is you want to make sure that you get the right head design. You want to have a cavity if you're a higher handicap player. You want to have some forgiveness. You want to have, and what forgiveness is, I always tell people, look at the sole of the club, the bottom of the club. If it's really thin, it is for a better high caliber player. If it is got a lot of meat down there, if it's really thick, then that's something that's going to be user friendly. It's going to help you to get the ball into the air. And so they've just distributed the weight. They've made it wider. They've given you more of a flange at the bottom to help get the ball up into the air. So a lot of times, especially with the women that I teach, a lot of the women I teach in our clinics, they come to the lessons with their husband's hand-me-down clubs. They're already behind the 8 ball. Yeah. You can't do that. You've got to have If you have a slower swing speed, if you're just getting started the game, you're most likely going to be in graphite shafts. The shaft is the engine of the club and is by far the most important part of the club, in my opinion, because if you can have the perfect head, but if you have the wrong shaft, whether it's too light or too weak or too strong, that is going to affect you a lot. If you have a club that's too heavy for you, you're going to tend to pull down on it. You're going to tend to drive the club into the ground. And if you have a club that's too light for you, you're going to get a lot of torque in your swing, and your ball, you can make a really nice golf swing. And then the ball is going to go who knows where. I have had a lot of my teenagers who are, they're just growing and they're getting bigger and stronger. And I look at these clubs, and I've said to one time, I said, this club, I said, it is just a matter of time before you break one of these clubs because it's way too weak for you. And the very next shot, the club head went flying down the driving range, and he broke it. And he goes, I can't believe that just happened. I said, I just told you it was going to happen, and you did it. So I said, I've got to talk to your parents. And I said, we have to get him new clubs because he's going to break all of these clubs. He's way too strong for these clubs. So those are just two examples. And then you have the length of the club. Now, that's a very important thing to take into consideration as well. That's going to be based on your body build. And then the last thing is the lie of the club, because, like, for example, one of the things that I have found, and I just found this out last year, and this has really helped me out a lot, but I'm tall. And so you would assume most fitters have always fit me with upright clubs. Right. But when I bend over, I have very long arms, so my arms are down. I actually have gone to now a 1 degree flat versus standard lie angle, and it has helped me out tremendously because I just feel more comfortable when I set up to the ball. So you can't just look at someone and go, well, he's short, he needs a short club, and he's tall, he needs a long club. The size of your chest, the length of your arms, all of these things, length of your legs, all of these things go into club fitting. And so if you're going to get club fitting done right, you need to go to someone that is going to take into consideration your body build, obviously your ability, and then the last thing is the grip size. You know, making sure, like I see a lot of women that come, again, with their husband's hand-me-down. They've got these fat grips that are way too big for them. They can't properly get their hands on the club. Those are all of those things that I've just mentioned, and there's probably more that I've forgotten that are going to go into making sure that you give yourself the best opportunity to actually be able to make a good golf swing. So you can't just give someone clubs just because that, you know, you're passing them down. It's really best that you get fit.
Yeah, I think it's okay to do that if you're wanting to introduce them to the game and just let them hit a few shots. And, you know, obviously it's not going to be perfect, but just to see whether they're going to be interested. But if they're seriously wanting to play, I agree with that. I don't know how many times I've seen, you know, wives come to the driving range and or practice tee for a lesson, and same thing. They've got their husband or boyfriend or whatever hand-me-down clubs, and the shafts are super stiff and the grips are too big, and you know whatever, you can go on and on, the list keeps growing, but and they're just not able to move the club the way it needs to be moved. So I always say to them, you know, you need to get fitted properly. If you're going to take up this game and you want to play it with any sort of reasonable skill level, you've got to make sure you're fitted properly in all of the areas that you touched on. Let's quickly, as we get ready to wrap up, let's touch on, I know you guys have sort of thrown a few in here and there, but John Hughes, I'm going to come back to you, and let's maybe just throw out a couple of quick drills. Give us another low point drill. I know you already touched on one earlier. What's another low point drill that we can do to establish finding where our low point in the swing is? Or there's some guides that we can do. And then John will come back with another one for you.
The two that I always go to, and this has a lot to do with closing and opening the face as well, is what I call the shaft extension drill. It's basically taking a plastic rod that you can get at any big box home store, and you're sticking it in the hole in the grip. You're letting it go halfway down the shaft or so, and it's definitely extended out. And what you're trying to do is put that extension under your front arm, and all you're trying to do is rotate through the shot, trying to keep your arms extended. I think one of the things that people do when they can't find the low point is they go searching for it by bending their arms and doing all sorts of things with their wrists. So this shaft extension drill is really simple. It's the basis to everything, whether it's a chip shot, trying to make it grow into more of a 9-3 kind of drill. which is a second drill, just 9 to 3 on a clock. Swing back to 9, swing forward to 3. But with the shaft extension, let the club brush the ground. Don't be afraid for that club to brush the ground. That's another reason why people struggle with low point. They're fearful of what the ground's going to do reverberation-wise through that golf club. The other one I mentioned, I call it the feet together release drill. Use it a lot with driver, but I do use it quite a bit with irons when somebody's having a hard time understanding the timing of the release. And it's really important for the beginner and the novice to tee the ball up doing this drill. When you're going after it down on the ground, you may have some issues getting started with this drill, but it's very easy. Put your feet together, put that club out, and all you're trying to do is bring it back. You definitely are trying to bring it through and release a little bit, but all you're trying to do is find the golf ball. I mean, that's really what it's about. Let's find and collect that golf ball and see what you can do to put a flat face on that ball, not only for it to go straight, but to have a little bit of ball speed too.
Yeah, and definitely tee it up. What I like particularly about the first drill that you mentioned, it's a great way to identify whether or not people are using too much arm in their swing or if they're actually rotating the body, because that shaft will come off their side if you're setting up properly. If they're not making the turn correctly, that shaft will come away from the body. So it's a good idea to tell whether or not they're using just swinging their arms back or collapsing their arms as well. So that's always a good drill. I've seen you do that in a number of videos.
Yeah, it's when you get the welts on the side, don't blame that on me when your spouse asks what you've been doing, whether you're male or female. But that is exactly what you're saying, is that when you're so armsy, handsy, this thing's going to hit you in the side every time somehow. And what all you're trying to do with a shaft extension drill is not allow that to get touching you until very late, until you fully turn, you've got the arms extended, and this is probably underneath you somewhere. Will it touch you a little bit? Sure. Will it reverberate? Will it vibrate? Sure. No big deal. The concept is very simple. The faster, the harder, the more aggressive you try to do that drill, the worse it gets.
Yeah, that's a great point. And just for you ladies out there that listening, if you see any of those hash marks on your husband, that's the John Hughes low point drill that he gave here tonight.
Truthfully, everybody knows this. Just take ownership, and then it's all okay. It goes away really quick.
Right, exactly. Well done. John Decker, let's give him another weight shift drill as well. This is another area that, again, as you touched on, is there another favorite drill that you like to do to help people make sure they're shifting correctly in the golf swing?
Yes, I have 3 drills for the transition and the weight shift, and they're all on my website, deckergolf.com. One is the step forward drill, where you get into a setup position, you take your left foot back and you put your feet together and you bring the club back and you swing back, and then you physically step forward, just like a lot of the kids call it the Happy Gilmore drill, where you're stepping into the ball. So you step forward and hit the ball. That's one way. The other way is what Gary Player actually did when he played on the senior tour, where you actually step through the ball. You swing, and your right foot, if you're right-handed, will step over your left foot and kind of go around your left leg. That's the step through drill. And then the last one is the tap and go drill. And that drill is you swing back and you take your left foot and tap your right foot as the club is going back. And then you step forward and hit the ball. All of these drills, they're difficult to explain in this format, but if you go on the website and watch the videos, those 3 are on my website. And I think those are 3 of my drills that I go to. My favorite of the 3 is the step through, which is how Gary Player, again, played on the golf course. And I've seen Tiger Woods do this on the golf course from downhill lies. And also when I'm on a downhill lie, I do that drill. I did that recently in a tournament. I had on extreme downhill lie, and to make sure that I got my weight through, I actually hit the ball. My right foot came off the ground, crossed over my left foot. I knocked it up on the green and made birdie. So that drill can be taken out onto the golf course, and it's something that you can use on the course as well.
Well said. And I'm going to give each of you guys a chance as we close out to let the folks know, number one, how they can reach out, and give them your website, because I know both Johns have some great drills and tips on their website that people can check out after the show. So we'll go in order again. John Hughes, go ahead. How can folks reach out if there's anything quickly that you'd like to plug? And don't forget to give them that website.
Absolutely. It's johnhughesgolf.com. And whether it's a social channel, my YouTube channel, just search for John Hughes Golf. And the drills and such that I have, they're not on my website. They are on the YouTube channel. There's over 300 different types of videos that you can see there. A lot of drills with setup, a lot of drills to try to find your low point, a lot of situational stuff to John's point with that severe downhill lie. That's the series that I'm in right now. Don't want to plug it too soon, but come September, there's going to be some major things for me to plug and announce that I'm really excited about. I'm spending a lot of time on now that I'm hoping really provides a deeper look into what I do, what is available, and what can be done with as little effort as possible from the consumer end, from the golfer end. And that's as much as I'm going to tease it.
That's about as little as I think you've ever said on promoting something here, John. You're going to be on here before that time comes anyway, so we'll give you a chance to plug it more officially at that point. But thank you, as always, for coming on. And Mr. Decker, how can the folks reach out to you and let them know where they can see some of your drills that might cover not only tonight's topics, but maybe some other things that we've talked about before?
Well, John, first of all, thank you for coming on the show with us. And Ted, thank you for having us. You give us a great opportunity, and I really appreciate it. For the listeners out there, if you want to get in touch with me, go to my website, deckergolf.com. On my website, I have all of my videos, my video libraries, and I cover pretty much every situation that you're going to face on the golf course. You can also find me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. And on my YouTube channel now, I have over 500 videos that are on the web or on my channel, and it's under John Decker Golf Instruction. And my first name is spelled Jon for those out there. So if you're searching that, it's just you put in John Decker Golf, and you'll find that on YouTube. And then I have 2 books that I've written, and both of them are Christian golf books. And the first is Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, and the second is Fairways to Heaven, One Shot at a Time. And both of those books are you can find them on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all the different websites out there. And if you're looking for a public speaker, it is speaking engagement, feel free to reach out on deckergolf.com. I'd love to come to your golf course or church or wherever and speak. So I'm looking forward to doing some of that coming up here real soon. So thanks again, Ted, for having us on the show.
Thank you for bringing your best, and always enjoy having you guys on the show. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and when I come back, I'm going to be joined by golf fitness expert, Mr. Bob Forman. Welcome back, everyone. I'm excited to have joining me once again my great golf fitness expert, Mr. Bob Forman. He's joining me here on the show once again. And just let me tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll get into tonight's discussion. He's the former director of fitness and wellness for the Congressional Country Club in Bethesda, Maryland. He's internationally known as a leader in the field of golf fitness. His programs have been recognized multiple years by the Golf Fitness Association of America. He holds a Master's of Science degree in exercise physiology and is a certified golf fitness instructor through the Titleist Performance Institute, or TPI for short, and the Gray Institute as well. Bob, welcome back to the show. I appreciate it. And we were just talking off air here, and Bob's going to send me a few really good articles on some of what we're going to be talking about here tonight, and some other things. And we'll get that up on golftipsmag.com real soon. and let you see some of his handiwork, if you will. And I think there'll be some great tips and insight there into getting fit and being fit and just playing your best golf. So, but tonight we're going to talk about two areas that we haven't really touched on. And I just want to give a disclaimer a little bit here first, because I know this was something you had brought to my attention. I know that you are a certified golf fitness instructor, so we can talk about that. But we're going to talk, as I said, about nutrition. I know you're not a certified nutritionalist, so I want to make sure that people understand that whenever and wherever possible, that it's always a good idea to consult with an expert in whatever field, even with the golf fitness. If you're not working with Bob directly, it's always good to make sure that you seek consultation with your normal physician to make sure that you're healthy enough to do any of the exercises that we may discuss here, or change any dietary nutrition that you may be doing. We want to make sure that you stay healthy, and this is just really more for informational and give you sort of a focal point, if you will, and a guide. But you always should consult a physician to make sure, your doctor that is, to make sure that you're not putting yourself in any sort of harm's way in that. But so let's talk about nutrition a little bit. So first off, let's talk about something I think relatively easy, and that is, how does nutrition play a role in playing our best golf? Who cares? We are what we eat. I know that, but how does it play a role in making us better golfers?
I mean, fuel the body effectively so that you can play to your utmost potential. So, a big part of that is, like you say, you are what you eat. So what you put in your mouth really can kind of dictate how you feel out there on the golf course. And during the 4 or 5 hours that it takes to play around the golf, you want to make sure that you're properly fueled. So, it is important to make sure you're eating the proper food substrates, and that you continue to do that through the round, so that the back nine is not going to be sluggish.
And let's touch on that a little bit. And again, keeping in mind that this is just sort of a general discussion, just to give some ideas of sort of some of the do's and don'ts. So what are some of the do's and don'ts when it comes to your nutrition for golfers out there? I know I can think of one offhand. We all like to have that chili dog or what have you, or cheese dog at the golf course, but that may not always be the best thing for us. So if we're looking to keep our stamina up out in the golf course, what are some foods or nutritional items that we should maybe scale back a little bit on, especially if we're getting ready to play this week, and maybe some other ones that we need to make sure that we're, eating and or drinking? What are some good options here? Give us some of the do's and don'ts.
Well, the probably the number one substrate you should focus on is complex carbohydrates. Regardless of what you read or what you hear, the complex carbohydrates, which are your fruits, your vegetables, your beans, even your pastas in there and stuff like that, are kind of what the body prefers, especially during a round of golf. It's not an intense exercise, but it is done over a period of time. So if you can, as a matter of fact, the dietary guidelines for Americans that came out, and they come out every 4 or 5 years, they're recommending that 85% of your total calories during the day comes from nutrient-dense food. And that's, again, your complex carbohydrates, your protein, your fish, your meats, stuff like that, egg whites, lentils. It's the fat that kind of sits in your stomach. So, throughout the week, you want to make sure that you're eating properly, not only for playing a good round of golf, but just for overall health. But when it comes to the actual day of playing golf, or while you're out there on the golf course, because again, it's going to take you 4 or 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you put in your system that has a lot of saturated fat in it, it's just going to sit in your system. So that may kind of make you a little sluggish out there. So you want to make sure that you're getting that food that's going to get ingested fairly quickly, that you can utilize throughout the round. And then on top of that, staying hydrated is also very important. I know everybody's out there likes to drink, have a few beers on the golf course or drinks and stuff like that. But
don't squelch our fun, Bob. Don't squelch our fun.
You gotta have fun. Yeah, I know. I'll admit, a beer or two out there, with the guys and stuff. But I mean, if you can stick to the clear liquid, the water, I mean, that would be your best option, obviously. Especially you don't want to get yourself dehydrated. You want to make sure that you are well hydrated, because if you do get into a semi-state of dehydration, and it doesn't take long to get into a state of dehydration, that water is taken out of the blood. So now the blood has less volume to kind of get the nutrients around to the muscles that you're going to utilize while you're playing around the golf. So staying hydrated is just as important as eating the proper foods before, during the round of golf.
Jack Nicklaus famously talked about in his video from some years back now, Golf My Way, how he felt it was important. Now, he would bring something. He'd bring, sometimes a sandwich or whatever. And a lot of people don't want to do that. I get it, this day and age. And, of course, they got the cute cart girl coming around there, so they want to buy something for her. But if you were going to advise somebody maybe what to stay away from when she comes around as far as food is concerned, I mean, what people look for stamina. And, especially as we get older, you get that back nine, and by about the second or third hole in the back nine, by the time you get about 13, 14, you're starting to lose some steam. So part of it I know is hydration, as you suggest, but what would be maybe a good snack to bring to the course? And, or if you are going to get something off of the cart, is there anything, and again, I know that it's subject to debate, but is there anything on the golf cart that maybe that typically at most courses that you could get that would be okay to that you're not going to get this big sugar rush and then crash after? So give us some thoughts on that. What can we do to keep our stamina up?
Well, the sugar stuff isn't that bad. It's going to get ingested pretty quick into the bloodstream, so you're going to be able to utilize those calories fairly quickly, versus, like I say, a fatty type food, a hot dog or cheese or anything like that. If you're going to have a sugary type food, try to eat it, maybe with some sort of protein that will slow that ingestion a little bit into the bloodstream. Like you say, you don't want to get that quick spike of blood sugar and then it just quickly drops, and come 14, 15, you're all of a sudden feeling like you got a load on your back. So yeah, I mean, complex carbohydrates, like I say, some breads, like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, might be a good little thing to take with you, or to take off the food cart if they have stuff like that. Protein bars are always good, to kind of ingest while you're out there on the golf course. But again, just stay away from like even the chocolate bars and stuff like that, because that stuff will just kind of sit in your system.
Yeah. And, I've also heard too, maybe bringing a small bag of almonds or something along that line to, kind of crunch on a little bit as you go through, not when your buddy's in his backswing, but, needless to say, you want to have something like that. Some nuts are better than others, but those might be something, or a protein bar, as you suggest. But you want to be able to make sure that you've got enough energy to finish out your round, because again, especially when you're here in the South, or even out in the West in the desert, and you're playing and you start getting those, we're going to talk about that now, some of those hotter temperatures out there. Mm-hmm. And if you're not properly hydrated, and if you're not eating the right foods, on that second nine, you're starting to lose a lot of energy. And it's just, it's like, I'm not even going to, stand over the ball and I'll just punch this shot a little ways up the fairway. And you get to the point where you lose interest in the round. Even though you're finishing the round, you're still losing interest and momentum. And you might have started off having a great front nine, but now all of a sudden you've overindulged. Maybe you had a couple of too many beers on the front nine, and you're dehydrated and not eating enough, getting enough good nutrition. So those are some great tips. Let's talk about heat. Battling the heat is a big issue, especially as I mentioned here in the South. I think it seems should be pretty obvious, but again, how do we prepare ourselves to handle that? Because there's a couple of factors. It's not just the nutritional side of things, but again, especially if you're somebody that's traveling maybe from way up north, maybe Canada or whatever, you're coming down here to the South to play some golf, and now you've got a 20-degree jump in the temperature, and you throw some humidity in there that you're not used to. Your body's not quite climatized that, right? Walk us through that a little bit. What do we need to do here, and what's happening to our bodies?
Yeah, I mean, for the folks that are up north coming down south, I mean, you got to remember it takes about 2 weeks to acclimate to the temperatures and, like you say, the humidity and stuff like that. And it doesn't have to be extremely hot temperature-wise,
right,
to kind of feel the effects from the weather. I mean, that's why it's important to kind of follow the heat index, which takes into account temperature and humidity versus just what the temperature is. Because you can have a temperature in the mid 80s, but if the humidity level is up, that heat index is going to be higher. So that means that the body is going to have to work harder to dissipate the internal body temperature. And again, if your body's working harder to get rid of that temperature, you're not going to have, as good a round as you think you are, because you're going to feel sluggish, you're going to feel tired. You may not have the energy to kind of have fun out there on the golf course because your body's trying to, stay at a normal temp. So, yeah, it's important to acclimate, give yourself plenty of time to acclimate to the warmer temperatures and humidity. And again, it goes back to make sure you stay hydrated, because again, like we said, if you get into that semi-state of dehydration, and again, it doesn't take long to get there, your body's going to try to conserve that energy or use that energy to, get you through, versus having that energy to swing a golf club. And you'll feel sluggish, and like you say, the back nine will just be a drag.
Yeah. And, I've seen that so many times over the years, and it's just, I keep saying to these guys, I've played with groups, and, I'll join up in a group and I'll see them having a bunch of beer, or they're not drinking hardly any water at all. And again, I don't begrudge them. They're there to have fun, but at the same time, I can just see it happen. And it's just like, the train's engines just died. They're not feeding the coal anymore, and they fed it something else, and it's just, they're sluggish. Something else I want to get you to touch on, because this was something years ago that used to hear a lot about. Now with technology in nutrition and things like that, it's changed. But talk about electrolytes as well. This is something that people don't factor in. I mean, it's good to drink water, but your body is sweating a lot when you get into these warmer climates, especially with humidity. And your body loses a certain element of salt and things like that. Years ago, a lot of the players on the PGA Tour would take these. I can remember some of them saying they're taking these salt tablets and things like that. Well, they don't do that anymore. They have some other replacements. But talk about that a little bit, because that's an important thing I think people overlook. Because it's not just the fact that you're not having water, but you're losing a lot of nutrients out of your body through sweat and other things like that. So touch on that a little bit, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, and I'm a big sweater. So, I mean, I just cut the grass here down here in Charlotte, just outside Charlotte, and I came in and I felt like looked like I just jumped in the pool. So, yeah, I mean, the electrolytes, the sodium, potassium, magnesium, you got to make sure that you keep those levels adequate within the body, because, again, you're going to lose those through your sweat. And that may impact muscle contraction, which you don't want to be tinkering with that while you're out on the golf course. I mean, you can get into also things like heat cramps, which are basically muscle cramps, and because of the fact you're losing those electrolytes. Or even worse, you can get into a situation where you might get into heat exhaustion, which hopefully you never do. But it's important to maintain those electrolytes, and citrus juices are a good thing to have, because they will have some of those, the chemicals in those drinks. Nowadays, there's a lot of electrolyte drinks that you can have. There's electrolyte tablets that you can buy that you can put in water. They're like Alka-Seltzer, and they'll just fizzle, and you can consume that. The Gatorades, the Powerades, and just be careful of the sugar levels in those drinks.
I was just about to say, you got to be careful of the sugar level. And again, this is where maybe you want to consult with a good nutritionist about that, to find out, to make sure. Again, I'm not knocking any one product, but there are a lot out there that talk about, this is great for, and I know, you've already named one of them, but I'm not knocking Gatorade. I'm guilty of it too, but I know sometimes when a lot of the pro athletes used to, do commercials and things like that, and they, drink that stuff back, and, we find out years later that maybe, not saying it's bad for you, but there's a lot of sugar people need to be mindful, especially if you're diabetic. You need to make sure that you're not spiking your insulin levels and things like that.
Those drinks have evolved over the years. I mean,
exactly. They're better now than what they were back then. But I agree. But you still need to figure that out, and I think it's important that you do that. But it's just one of these things that I think that you have to be mindful of, and you just have to be able to consult with the right people. And I think it's so important, especially as we're getting through we're really in the cusp of the summer right now, and it's hot everywhere. It's been hot down there. We've had a lot of rain here in Florida, so it hasn't been as bad, but we've had some cooler, periods right after the rain, which is unusual. Usually it gets hot. But you need to really be mindful of the heat because it'll just zap every ounce of energy. So again, I think the nutritional aspect of it is important. And is there anything else you can do from a physical standpoint to get yourself obviously being in better shape to be able to handle that? I mean, we've touched on the nutritional. What can you do from a physical standpoint to get yourself in a little bit better shape so that your body can handle a little bit easier some of the things we've been talking about?
I mean, obviously, the better, the higher the fitness level of the individual, the more you're going to be able to tolerate conditions like heat and humidity and stuff like that. So if you can get into a regular exercise program, which consists of strength and cardio and flexibility, stretching, that's going to go a long way in terms of combating all those conditions that you're going to confront out on the golf course, which includes not only the environment, but the ambient temperatures and such like that, and humidity levels that you're going to. And the same thing in the wintertime. So the more efficient your body is at getting that blood through the system and dissipating internal body heat, which will obviously get better as your cardiovascular levels get better. It'll help you out on the golf course in terms of getting through those hot, humid days. And the same thing on the nutrition part of it, just make sure that obviously if you do exercise, hopefully you're thinking about the food component and that you're also eating better than those that may not be so concerned about their fitness and health. But that'll take you a long way out on the golf course.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you want to stay away from things that are going to zap your energy, because I've even gotten to the point now with a lot of older golfers. I've said to them, and I know some of them don't want to do this, but I said, instead of playing 18, play 9, play the front 9 today, especially golf, retirees and that have a lot of time on their hands. They're playing several rounds a week. I said, instead of playing 18 holes and tiring yourself out, play 9 holes, in the morning, maybe tomorrow morning, play the back 9 of that. If you've got a favorite course, and fine, combine your score for 18. It's going to be pretty accurate from day to day. It's not going to change a whole lot. If you're been playing for any sort of regularity and you're pretty, on the ball when it comes to your golf game in general, but, start scaling back and just maybe playing 9 holes instead of 18. I mean, you don't have to play 18 every time. And I'm not saying it on cooler days. Okay, let's push it a little bit more. But when it gets hot out here, especially down in Florida, you got 95-degree weather and you got some, 85, 90-year-old guy out there and he's trying to pump in 18 holes. It's just, even the young guys are struggling a little bit. It's just too much. So scale it back.
And the clothing too. I mean, nowadays the manufacturers, golf apparels now, with the dry fit stuff and that will just kind of wick that moisture away from the body and help kind of dissipate it and keep you cooler while you're out there. Obviously a hat, to kind of keep the sun off the skin and stuff like that will also help. They have towels, those cool towels that you can wet and then they get cooled to keep you comfortable while you're playing in the hot, humid days. So there's a lot of stuff out there that can help you get through the round.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, Bob, I want to thank you. I think we hit most of the highlights. And again, always want to encourage people to work with a certified golf professional, a fitness professional like Bob Forman here. If you're interested in doing that, we'll give your information out. I know you're not doing as much as you used to, but maybe you can also give them a website that they can go to get more information and see some great articles. And I'm going to be taking some of Bob's favorite articles, and we're going to get those up on golftipsmag.com here real soon, so you can get some of that knowledge as well. And then also maybe quickly just touch on your book. You've got a great book that's available, Functional Golf Fitness Training. Where is that available, and how can people get their hands on a copy?
Yeah, the book you can get through the book patch, and or you can go online to my website, and there's a link there. And my website is Golf Fit Carolina. It's 1F1T, so it's like golfitcarolina.com. I'm starting to get back out on the road now that I'm semi-retired.
Not quite officially retired, just semi-retired.
Not quite, retired all the way, but so I'm getting back out on the road and doing some golf fitness clinics at some clubs and stuff like that. So if anybody's interested in offering something like that at their club or organization, the information's on the website that they can contact me, and we kind of go through a lot of good stuff to help golfers play better, healthier golf.
I couldn't agree more. All of Bob's information is on his website. You can also get a link to his book, Functional Golf Fitness Training. I'm going to have that as well with the link up on Golf Tips Mag here, golftipsmag.com real soon. So, Bob, I want to thank you for coming on. I look forward to seeing you again in a couple of weeks' time. We'll have you back, and we'll have another segment that we'll talk about making people a little bit better fit and have a better time out in the golf course. Because if you're not in good shape and if you're lacking behind, slugging out in the back nine, we're going to try and give you some things to help you build up your stamina and help you become a better player in the long run. Even if you're up in those years, there's still lots of great golf left, so don't give up. But I want to thank you for joining me tonight, and we're going to take another quick commercial break. And when I return, I'm going to be joined by this evening's featured guest. I'll be right back.
Improve your putting with the Alignment Ball Marker, a revolutionary new in-game putting alignment tool and ball marker. Its patented design allows you to reach your putt and adjust your alignment at the same time by using your putter, which improves your accuracy and makes the process of putting faster. 100% legal according to the USGA, by their definition, permitted under the rules of golf. Winner of Best New Product at the PGA Show and only $9.99 on Amazon. And it's also completely customizable for any golf event or as a promotional giveaway. Order at alignmentballmark.com.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm very, very excited to bring on my featured guest of the evening, Miranda Turner. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, and then we'll get into tonight's discussion here. Miranda, of course, is the CEO of MGI Golf Inc. Here in North America. She has been with the business since 2005 and is the eldest daughter of MGI founder Ian Edwards. With a deep understanding of the brand and its global potentials, played a pivotal role as international markets director, where she was instrumental in launching MGI in the North American market. Under her leadership, MGI has grown significantly and is now recognized as the #1 electric golf caddy brand in America. She also continues to drive the company's strategic vision, fostering innovation and strengthening MGI's presence across North America. So, Miranda, welcome to Golf Talk Live, and thank you for joining me.
Thanks for me, Ted. It's so nice to meet you.
Well, it's very nice to meet you. So we've given a little bit of sort of a very brief history. Obviously, you're the daughter of Ian, who developed MGI. But tell us a little bit more how it got started. How did he decide, and why did he decide to start MGI?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's 32 years ago now. It just seems like a blink ago. When Dad started it. I'd like to say that I wasn't born at that point, but I was. And I do remember it actually
Barely.
We're on video, so I think they know. You're lying. But yeah, look, it literally started, in our garage. So I was very aware, of Dad's steps into golf. I mean, prior to golf, Dad was in tennis. We'd go to the Australian Open. He was a distributor for Yonex. And that really, through sport, through tennis, he ended up over here at what used to be the, very big sports expo in Atlanta, Georgia. He'd come over for that. Through his introductions, he was able to connect with a lot of the UK-based sports network, you might say. And then he started thinking about golf from there. He kind of came back to Australia, and his dad was an avid golfer and was really looking for, a better way to get around the golf course. Victoria is known for its beautiful golf courses in Australia, where this company began. But it's pretty flat, but still, people were looking for that next piece of, equipment. So for his dad, my dad started, really fishing out there. And that's when he came across electric golf caddies. And in Australia, we call them motorized golf buggies. So it's like the tech's still so new. Every pocket and every industry or market, you might say, does have a different term for them. There's trolleys, trundlers, caddies, electric push, which I don't know where that comes from. So from there, he really took it upon himself to really develop something that was the best in market. We had a look at the UK. They're really leading that way, as we would know, in booking the golf course. But, they only get to play 6 months, 8 months a year. we needed to build something that could be played 365 days a year. And our courses, our fairways, they can be pretty rough in certain parts. Also depends on how good a golfer you are, where you're going to end up. And so Dad really built something very robust. And then from there, his interest in golf really took off. He moved away from tennis. He played golf just 24/7. And, he's an entrepreneur, but he's also had a lot of, great ideas, a lot of vision for how he can benefit, how he could, benefit the product through new innovation. And so, you kind of fast forward to 2018 where we were like, hey, how about the US market? And that's where we really, fast forward to now, being number one here. There's a lot of water under the bridge between that. But that's kind of where it all started. We're all, my sister's in the business, my uncle as well. He just retired, actually. So, it's been very much a family-run business, up until this point.
I think that's why it's become so successful. I think when you have a business of your own and again, that doesn't mean that you may or may not have other employees helping along the way, but I think when it's a family-run business, you look at things differently than a lot of, companies that just sort of appoint a CEO and then you have other folks. And I'm not saying that there aren't other good companies, but I think when it's family-run, that's kind of your baby, for lack of better words, and you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears into it. And it means it has a different meaning, I think, when it's your own company, as opposed to working for somebody else. So let's fast forward a little bit here. You come along. I'm assuming you were somebody that maybe played a little bit of golf earlier on, but at some point you got involved in the business. How did that take place?
Yeah, I studied university very much down that business path, obviously following my father's footsteps. But it took me through the travel industry. Being Australian, we love to get off our island when we can. It's a big island, but so through the travel industry, through wholesale business and sales, was my path. And from there, 20 years ago, really, to the day, Dad said, look, I really need more support. He had some people working in the business. When you bring family in, you get that automatic trust. You probably get automatic compliance as well. Back, I think, in the, when you're looking in the early 2000s, coming out of the 90s, you've got to look after your staff and you can't talk to them probably the way he used to. So he just said, look, can you come in? I really need someone to look after national sales. And I said, look, I will, but I'm going to continue to travel through the country. And so from there, I really identified that to grow, we needed a sales team. We were really running it quite, small business based in Victoria. But, so I went out, employed our reps, one in every state, and, really tried to take sales to that next level. While I was enjoying that, 20 years goes on, but, I had my own family and said to Dad, look, national sales, great, but, I need a little bit more flexibility in what I'm doing. He said, why don't you do international? You can get up at 2 a.m., talk to Denmark. You can get up at midnight, talk to the UK. And I said, you know what, that probably suits what I need to do. So I got more into product development and the international side of the business and stepped away from just Australian domestic. I loved it. Loved all of it. Loved relationship building, learning about golf being played all throughout the world, different markets. And then alongside that, I got involved in the product development, and I really enjoyed that part as well, right down to packaging design to the innovations in the product. And then, again, that's when we started looking at America, and, we are distributed, in 40 different countries. We have around 30 different distributors, but we knew that the US, we needed to run that business ourselves. Sure. Yeah.
And that had to obviously present a certain challenge. I mean, obviously, as everybody knows, the US is the big, fish in the lake, if you were. It's the biggest market out there, especially when it comes to golf. And obviously, Europe and that is I would say, certainly a close second, but the U.S. is obviously the big market, so that presents its own challenge. You're coming over here; it's a different market. A lot of people, as you pointed out earlier, there's not as many walker. I mean, it's changing now, but for a while there wasn't a lot of walkers. Everybody was driving the electric carts, and actually it wasn't really an enjoyable round anymore. I used to walk all the time, obviously, when I was younger. But as you get older and the market gets more saturated with more golfers, they're pushing you out there like cattle into the golf carts. And people wanted to have a better experience. And along you guys came and said, hey, we've got something here where we can implement a little technology, but at the same time allow you to get out there and walk, but not have the burden of lugging the bag on your shoulder or using a push cart. So that was obviously a big step, and you guys have made a lot of strides. I mean, you're now number one leading in North America. That's a pretty big thing to, feather in your cap, so to speak, to have that. So that's got to make you guys feel pretty excited to not only come into a new market a few years back, but now advance into the number one spot.
Yeah. Oh, look, we don't take it lightly.
No.
So I'm so humbled again, to have that number one. Coming from a family business, we already work for passion. We're just
Sure.
so passionate about what we are. We're highly competitive, so we always like to strive to be that number one. We don't look back. We've always been leaders, and pushing through those barriers. And you're absolutely right. When we first got here, some people in Australia were like, "Are you mad? I don't think anyone walks in the US." And the numbers will tell you different. You look at the number of push carts that are being sold. We've seen in excess of 500,000 push carts in 1 year be sold. But look, there's a couple of reasons that things have changed, and I think the technology is one of them. I think coming out with something that you are just like a pro, being able to walk down that fairway with a remote controlled caddy, that absolute freedom of being able to stand up straight, walk freely, and without worrying about your equipment. So I think the technology has really caught the attention of people. But really that focus of health and well-being. I can still remember before moving over here, and some of the customer service was still done in Australia in 2020 during COVID when we couldn't travel. And I was taking phone calls at like 2 a.m., 3 a.m. And I spoke to this gentleman in Texas, and he said, I've purchased one of your caddies. I'm ringing up to tell you how great it is. I'm in my 50s. I can't believe I haven't been walking. We've been driving in carts. My friends and I are now, we need to buy more. Where do we buy them? And we all need to start walking for our own health and well-being. And ever since then, I've seen that change. And it's so exciting. It's, everyone who is walking now or, walked, like you said, carrying their bag, worrying about the weight, they're playing better rounds. That back nine, when it's really tough, when you really got to, hang in there, they've got more energy than their friends, and they're having a good time. And I think the tech is increasing the enjoyment, and that's what I love. I love hearing the stories of people telling me how much fun they're having with it and the difference it's making on their game. It's just so good.
And the technology has changed a lot to what you offer now. We can't get into all of it because, it would be probably a couple of hour show, but touch on a little bit how it sort of changed from when you first came online with your products to where it's at now. I mean, obviously the onslaught of major advancements in technology. So what are some of the big changes that people can see moving forward with what you've got now?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Like we came out, non-remote and remote caddies, the split used to be, 50-50. Now you're looking at a 10 and a 90. Everyone's moving into something that, they really don't have to put their hands on anymore. We used to have SLA batteries, I had my dad put one in my car once. That's how big they were. It's just, turn the ignition on. These kind of caddies that MGI has been building, we've come a long way in the tech, and we've built on every platform that we've had. And I think that's the real difference between somebody that just comes out who woke up yesterday and said, I'm going to do an electric golf caddy, to something that's really evolved. And I think that's in the nitty-gritties of the tech that we offer, the seamlessness between moving from a manual control to remote. Our caddies do have a gyroscope on board to keep that product straight. So even if you're hitting a divot, you don't have to worry about where it is, where your caddy is. It will straighten back up. So, bringing together that kind of technology has really changed the game and really kind of pushed that boundary. I do think that, our built-in now GPS course mapping has been awesome. We've got a 4-inch color touchscreen. You can see where you are on the golf course. You can see what's around that dog leg on your par 5. You can start learning more about your game without having to worry about plugging in a handheld GPS. With a much bigger screen than something that might be on your watch. You'll never forget it because it's built in. So, you're not going to leave it behind. So I really feel that's starting to, again, take us to that next level of tech. And, we've got some new product coming out next year that's going to push those boundaries again. But the tech is also not just great for, you and I. It's been revolutionizing the fleet programs within the clubs as well.
Oh, yeah.
The member experience, the visitor experience. We're getting to this point where we have 90 units sitting up at Oakdale Golf Club, which is where the Canadian Open was played a couple of years back. They have 90 of our Navigator GPS Pluses there. So if you're a member, you can literally just walk from your car to the clubhouse and there will be your caddy, or a caddy with your bag on it, ready to go. So this is where, some of these, private courses are heading for that member satisfaction, to really drive the experience and set themselves apart from other clubs. So it's really exciting where it's all going.
Do you see, and you may already have some of that exposure now, do you see that sort of parlaying over into the resort experience as well? Because a lot of resorts obviously have drivable carts and stuff, which is something they have to make available to their guests. But do you see, with more and more people becoming, as you pointed out, health conscious and a little bit more saying, hey, I want to get out there and start walking again. I enjoy the experience. Do you see them starting to gravitate to this type of product as well?
When we joined into a partnership with Troon Golf just over nearly a year ago now, as their preferred electric golf caddy, and that's actually one of the exact reasons that they were really interested in electric golf caddies. They've never had a vendor or a partnership with our type of category before, but they definitely see that is changing. We're also an official sponsor of their Troon Fit program. Which they're really committed to, maybe balancing out all the fun, hospitality side that they also offer. There's that, let's look after ourselves. Let's, ensure that we're not always riding in a golf cart. So, look, resorts are definitely coming around to it. I think design, course design is a tough one. If you've got a long, even with the best electric golf caddy, you're still walking. So some are just not, will never be
not conducive for it. Right.
Yeah. But there's Broom's Edge that was just completed, a golf course that's just opened up. It's walking only, and they opened their, brand new golf course. So there's been about 10 courses open in like the last 12 months where they've had a real walking focus, and they've taken on a fleet of our MGIs immediately. So resorts are definitely, I suppose our next challenge for us. But I think with the product evolving and we have these amazing programs where they can buy them outright or they can do lease financing, we're kind of running parallel to a ride-on golf cart with this new revenue stream for clubs as well.
Yeah, and it gives them an option. That's not to say that they're going to suddenly do away with the riding carts, but there's always going to be somebody that's going to want that for whatever reason. But I think it's good that they will have this as an option, because again, and I think you probably noticed a change with COVID, as challenging as COVID was for a lot of people around the globe. The one thing it did was really spike golf. Golf benefited, unfortunately, from that situation. Whether you look at it good or bad, but I think that you have a new, different type of golfer coming on the scene now that maybe is a little bit more fit conscious, that said, younger generation coming up that, I'm not saying that they won't drive a car, but are looking at it saying, I want to walk, I want to, stay fit, I want to be healthy. And this sort of walks right into your wheelhouse. So that's something I think that you probably noticed coming out of COVID as well. Did you not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, golf is just such a savior through that period, wasn't it? I mean, tennis was shut down. There were a lot of sports where, and you were told to stay away from people, but hey, you could walk that golf course. So yeah, I think everybody saw the upside to that. And we, and again, riding in a golf cart, you could take one, or a lot of golf courses had to put them away because they didn't have the resources to be wiping them down and getting them prepared for the next round. So, there was some challenges for the golf course at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, products like ourselves that promoted that walking, that you own it yourself, you take it home. It definitely created a new, a new way of walking that course. I think the demographics are changing, and I think that's, that 18 to 35-year-olds, I think we just saw, recently, like they're, the number one category, of demographics playing golf now. And what are they looking for? They're looking for tech. They're like, I've got, maybe, they've got high disposable income, maybe, they haven't had the children yet that, can suck at your time. And so they're like, what, I'm spending all my, and we love them. I have 2 girls, my pride and joys. But yeah, I mean, I think to be able to, they'll spend money on, game-changing equipment, and they see a product like MGI and they're like, that is doing a 360-degree turn so fast on a dime. I don't have that. Like, this is a lot of fun, and I get to walk the golf course. I don't have to be a hero anymore. The Scotty Schefflers of the world aren't carrying their bag. It's not an ego thing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I think, look, our, part of our vision has always been, to, accelerate that tech piece and the acceptance of it, but also, shape that next generation of golfer into wanting to stay in the game, be progressive, who, want to see tech come into the game. And, we've been really excited to join the Hurricane Junior Golf Association this year, just to do that amateur to pro programs, that really aligns with a lot of, what we do for to drive growth. But personally, for me, I love kids in sport. And that was, I can do the company line of, it's part of our vision to get more, products into the hands of people. But to be part of kids sport is something pretty special. And they do a great job out there at Hurricane. And, they've now got our product at every event. And kids can try one out. They can rent it for the, the duration of the event if they want. I think the parents are having a bit of fun seeing it out there. But I love seeing my product in amongst the kiddos, and that next generation of golfers, and practicing health and well-being.
Yeah. And if it's the slightest bit cool, they want to have it. So that, and you guys have a great product. I mean, it's very edgy. It's very, very innovative, and it just looks great. It's a great product. And you also have become the official electric caddy for the Epson Tour, who I'm very familiar with. I interview the winners pretty much every week on my other show, The Women of Golf. So I'm very familiar with the Epson Tour people, and I was very excited. In fact, I'll be honest, that was, and again, not to take away from the products, that was one of the reasons why I reached out when the opportunity presented itself to have you come on the show, because I thought, wow, this is great. Because I just love these young ladies on the Epson Tour. They come on the show. They're just excited. And I thought, what a great partnership. And I'm glad to see their tour has been growing. We've been, in sort of a partnership, if you will, with them for probably about 10 years now. And we've been interviewing their winners and various players, and their chief business officer, and that as well has come on our podcast. So just very, very excited that you guys have done. So how did that come about, number one? And I know you've got some, I don't know if you're calling them ambassadors or not, but you've got a few of the ladies that are actually really out there using the product. So tell us about that. How did that come about?
Look, again, trying to get more exposure to our category has always been at the top of what we do. But one of the drivers that we do have is that amateur to pro program. And, the Epson Tour came into our radar. And I was like, what a great event. I mean, this is the women's version of the Corn Ferry. It's a qualifying event to get their ticket onto the LPGA. And so, obviously being a female, I was like, okay, well, I'd love to take a deeper dive on it. And, what we found was that we didn't realize there was so much disparity between the men's and the women's at that level. And, whether it's, the winnings, the purse sizes were different, and just the availability of funds to move around the number of events that they do. And we were just like, if we can make a difference to those athletes, to, in their pursuit to be the best that they can, we were like, this is a great event. So we met Jody Brothers, who looks after the event. And I mean, what a wonderful guy, isn't he?
He's phenomenal. Yeah. We've interviewed him many times. He's a great guy.
Oh, I'm just in awe of him. But the passion that he has matches our passion for what we do. And we just went, whatever you're doing, we want to be a part of that. How can we help? And so one of those was, was looking at the players and seeing if we could, find some ambassadors that might enjoy the product. So we kind of threw the product out there and said, everyone give it a go. And, I never expected to find such wonderful athletes, so funny, so charismatic, so hardworking, so diligent. I mean, they are out there practicing their fitness, their stretching, and then they go out and play 36 holes, and then they do it again the next day. I mean, I've been, really take my hat off to them. Gina Kim is one of our ambassadors. She just got a ticket to the LPGA, and we're just like, how amazing. You just get goosebumps just seeing that so early in the year. Julian Hollis, she's been amazing. So she ended up taking one of our caddies, had it customized in a red for her, and she's called it Kevin. And so she has this caddy moving around, and she wrote to us, and she said, he's been so great and instrumental to my success. So, these caddies have got their own little personalities, but so do these amazing women. They're just touring around. They're not at home. Some of them have family with them. Some of them don't. So when they have an electric golf caddy, it puts them on that same level, like playing field, you might say.
Sure.
They don't have to carry their bag. They're keeping, they're not allowed to use the carts. They've got to walk, and they're not using a push cart. So Hayley Cooper, who came 7th in the Women's Open, is an absolute rock star as well. So really enjoying having her on, Team MGI. Actually, the Epsom Tour crossed over with the Legends Tour the other day at the Toledo Classic in Ohio. And I presume I'm allowed to say it on air, but, Kari Webb, an Australian, one of our best Australian women players ever, is one of our MGI investors. Anyway, she was playing that day.
Yeah, she was fun. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you froze a little bit on screen, so I just wanted to sort of jump in there real quick. We've interviewed Gina Kim 3 times this year because she keeps winning all the time. And we actually had a running joke on the show. I said that I think there's a correlation between because she came on early in this year in, I think, March. She'd won her first tournament in March, and she came on, I think, the following week or it might've been 2 weeks. And then a few weeks later she won again, and then she came on the show, and then a few weeks later she won again. So I said, my partner on the show, she's an LPGA professional, Cindy Miller. And I said to her and Gina when she was on, I said, I think there's a correlation. Every time you come on our show, you win another event. So we got our fingers crossed that she'll be coming on a 4th time real soon. Well, the next best thing is she's guaranteed her spot on the LPGA, which is really what she was shooting for. So we'll take that as a win as well. So we're happy to brag about her. But, I really applaud you guys. Like I said, I was really excited when I saw that announcement. I actually have a post up on my company's website, golftipsmag.com, when that announcement was made. about your partnership with the Epson Tour. And I was really, really excited, obviously for you guys, but equally excited and in some ways even more for the young girls on the Epson Tour, because again, it's a struggle. Most of them are just coming fresh out of college, and they come out their rookie year in the tour, and it's completely different. They're not on a team any longer. They've got to find their own way, And just a sort of a shout out to Jody Brothers has been a breath of fresh air, I think, to the Epson Tour. He's just so passionate about building that tour. And as well as Epson has been a good partner with them for the last couple of years. And I think hoping that they're going to stick around for many more and renew again, because they've again brought a sort of a breath of fresh air in more purse money and more sponsorships as well. So between Epson and Jody Brothers, they're just doing a great job. And the young ladies deserve it. They work so hard and deserve equal billing. In fact, I enjoy watching them. I went to their tour championship 2 years ago, when it was still in Florida before it moved to California. And it was just exciting to watch these young ladies. They're just dedicated, very, very humble, just smart, and just it actually made me sick to watch them play because they were so good. You just want to go up and give them a little slap and say, well, how dare you make us look so bad, the rest of us. But hey, that's what they're there for, and that's what they're doing. So let's again, I know we can't get into too much of the technology because there's not a lot there, and we want to send them at some point at the end of the segment. We want to send them to your website so they can see more and really do a deeper dive. But give us a little bit of the technology. You touched on a few things, but what really makes MGI's product stand out?
Yeah, look, I really do believe it's the depth of product that we offer. We really design our product around the golfer. So we're not a single model company. Right. We've got the largest range of remote control caddies. We also have non-remote.
Sure.
So when we look at our range, we like to look at, okay, well, what kind of course terrain are people playing on? It's really important. It's some equipment, it doesn't matter. But with our equipment, it should, be taken into consideration. So we offer 3-wheel electric golf caddies, and we offer 4-wheel. So depending on that terrain, you might consider which one you might need. Then we look at, within that course terrain, do you need things like downhill speed control? Do you need electronic park brake? Do you need gyroscope to traverse, across a hill without it wanting to voluntarily just speed away from you? Right. So course terrain will help you match the product diversity, or pick the right product, really. And then it's about technology too, right? So, are you more comfortable looking at, standing behind it and just guiding it? Is that all you need? We've got that. Do you need right up to that, the AI Navigator GPS Plus that's really going to tell you everything about your game, traverse across that golf course freely, get you around 36 holes, so you can start looking at it from a tech perspective. And then we look at budget. Are you down, Sure. Are you just entering the market at $699? You don't have to come in at that $2,000 price point. So I think we really have that all solution for everybody, because it shouldn't be a one-stop shop. That's for sure. But look, sometimes beyond the fairway, you have to look outside of that, because we do offer electronics and we have motors. So we're a mechanical and electrical, style product. So that after sales service is super important. So we offer one of the longest warranties. We have a 3-year warranty. And we offer a do-it-yourself opportunity too. So should anything go wrong, you can call our super friendly team in Las Vegas, where I'm based, and we'll walk you through what the issue might be. It might be in warranty. It might be 5 years old. We'll walk you through it. If we'll have a part, and you can watch a video on how to fix it or how to replace that component, then you're away. So, we really like to look after the product for a long time. They can last a long time. Yeah. Between well past the warranty. So I think, the after sales service really puts us, ahead of the rest. We've got sales reps locally that are also part of our network of golf professionals where you can buy the product from. Like you mentioned before, we own our company. We're here because we love it, and we're here to make sure everyone has a really good experience. And we know they will when they buy it. But it's just about getting it in the hands of people out there and matching them with their next piece of really great golf equipment.
How important is, and I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask anyways, how important is customer feedback in addressing changes that you're going to make moving forward? Obviously certain technologies that you've implemented that you've touched on here tonight, I'm sure derived not only from your own personal experiences and what you would like to see, but also from customer feedback. Hey, we'd really love to see this, or, can you maybe in the next model do this? So how much, do you really rely on customer feedback? Because I think that's important as well.
Yeah. Oh, I think everything that we've built has been based from feedback from the golf course, whether it was, my dad, his friends who were our loyal, demo drivers, people are amazingly passionate about their electric golf caddy. So it's actually funny because I just reviewed the access points for people to get straight to our product development team. We don't want anybody just sending an email just to the sales area. We're really trying to collect that information because golfers have fantastic ideas. A lot of it really evolves around accessories. Like I need somewhere to put, I need somewhere to magnetize my laser rangefinder now. I need a bigger basket, to put everything in. So
stuff, yeah.
Everybody's
bringing more stuff to the golf course.
And I can't believe our caddies are actually handling it. Like I get photos through. You talk about customer experience. Can I tell you, one of my favorite recently was a gentleman in Michigan. He sent through this beautiful photo, him with his two mates, all in their early 70s. So the electric caddies are lined up in front of them. Literally, they were just carrying everything but the kitchen sink, right? You could hardly even see it was an MGI. And they stood there and they were so proud. They had their photo taken. And he said that the three of them play 3-4 times a week.
Wow.
And they strongly believe that it's because of their MGI that they're able to do that at their age.
Guarantee
and that it's keeping them walking. They said, thanks for building such a durable, functional device that enhances the game and helps them with their mental and physical health. And I'm not kidding you, I had that on my screen for a whole day, their photo, after reading that. And I just went, that's why we do what we do. And he didn't do that for any other reason that he was just so proud of him, his mates, and he wanted just to let us know. He didn't ask for anything. Of course, I sent him something because it made my day, but, that came all the way to me. We sent that out to our global, partners and to our Australian office to say, hey, this is what we're doing. I think customer satisfaction, but customer experience and feedback, that's what drives our business. Yeah, and I think, we're not we're a good sized company, but we're big enough to deliver and R&D on our product, but we're still small enough to listen, and we love that.
Yeah, and that's so important. That's a really great point that you make because again, sometimes customers get lost in the shuffle of things. I'm not saying it's done intentionally, but a lot of companies, get so busy filling orders that they forget to really listen, and the next thing you know, all of a sudden the problem arises and they're like, well, how did this happen? Well, for the last, year and a half, your customers have been chiming in and saying, hey, you got a problem here, but you're so busy pushing it out the front door that you're forgetting to deal with the issues coming in the back door. So I think that's really good. And kudos to you and the rest of your family and others that are participating as well, and keeping that sort of in the forefront. And I would imagine I was sitting here thinking as you were sharing the story with some of these older gents that, obviously are just loving their MGI, is I imagine there's even some competition there because I can just see them wanting to outdo one another and getting the latest and greatest thing. Upgrade. I want to upgrade before Bob does. And I guarantee that's happening. Now I don't know whether you see that on your end or whether that's going behind the scenes, but I guarantee it that there's some guys out there that it's just like a new car, they're reeling it out there and saying, hey, look what I got. And then it starts a competition. So, that's I'm sure something, if you haven't seen it, you're going to see it here before too long.
Yeah. the Navigator model, that's been around. That's going to celebrate something like nearly 20 years, the Navigator name. And that's that platform of remote control that we continue to build on. And so we now have 4 Navigators, and we notice that, Ted, exactly. The new one comes out, and you get a whole lot of people handing off their original one to maybe a wife, a husband, the child. Oh, I need the next one. I need my new Navigator. So it does. It's a cult following. We continue to use the Navigator technology because we love it, but our customers trust it. And that's, something we're pretty proud of. And, we only deliver product when the technology is ready to go too. I do see, look, we've got some competitors out there, and some will rush to market, or some will do one mode really well and another not so great. And we've always taken our time. A product shelf life's pretty long. It's like about 4 years. But we always make sure that it comes out. We don't want any dissatisfaction with the product, but it pays off doing it like that.
Yeah, I think sometimes if slow and steady is better than coming out and then having to scale back or recall or whatever because you've got multiple issues happening at the same time. And especially now that you're a global company, when it's local, it's a little bit different. You can handle that easier. But when you're a global company and you're dealing with that becomes logistically an issue. What do you see moving forward? What's sort of the next big trend do you think is going to be in what you have to offer the golfing community? I mean, a lot of more technology, I'm sure, maybe integration with Bluetooth speakers, charging, maybe it already offered a lot of that now, but what do you see as the next big trend moving forward?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of talk about, caddies and, like the prices are there. People are paying a lot for tech. But there's a lot of exposure on the golf course, right? There's 18 holes of hazards. That's what a golf course is all about. So one of the pieces of technology that we'll be releasing next is the GeoProtect, is to protect the product from water and from bunkers. So through that innovation of built-in GPS course mapping, we know exactly where those hazards are, and we're going to avoid them. That helps protect for the safety of the product, and of course, what's inside that golf bag. That's your life. It's your wedding ring,
right?
It's your phone. It's everything. It's your keys, the car. So it's not just the caddy. So I really do believe in protecting the product out on the golf course, particularly as people are looking for more of that hands-free experience. They get too chatty. They're not watching what the caddy is doing because it's trucking straight, but who knows really what direction did you really send it in?
Right.
So looking forward to bringing, GeoProtect, into, some of the new tech I can't exactly talk about, but there is something coming out next year. But look, follow me technology has always been something that people love to talk about. It's not the only way to have an electric golf caddy, and actually it's really hard to deliver. I don't believe any of our competitors that may have already introduced that are doing it well, or if they do that well, they don't do remote control well or the manual well. They don't integrate it completely into a seamless experience. But I know when we release our Follow Me into 2026, it's awesome, and that with the GeoProtect, that with the gyroscope technology, it's just going to be a really pleasant experience, down, along that fairway. And I think evolutions in lithium batteries are really important too.
Yeah, that's changing all the time, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's we're like electric scooters, e-bikes. We're really taking the position of the leader in best practices for lithium at the golf course and at home. Mm-hmm. So we work really closely with the manufacturer, of our battery to make sure that we know what the best practices are. Our legal teams have also worked on what is the best way to look after these, along with product development. And we're really educating people. Just be, if they go anywhere near water, you've got to dispose of that very quickly. Don't plug it in and use it. Lithium is actually so secure and stable. It's only when it's put into a particular environment in terms of how it's charged and how it's used on that golf course. We came out with a fireproof charging box, which is one of the first actually in the world. It is designed only for an MGI at this point, but it just means that golf courses, if they're storing them on site, maybe they've got a fleet, maybe they've just got a lot of members leaving them there, they can now put those on site and just sleep easy knowing that everything is in a fireproof charging box. We don't charge a lot for them. We've kept our margins low because we want them out there. We think It's a great idea. Just in case somebody did pop their electric golf caddy into the drink, maybe they didn't declare it, maybe they didn't realize that it was as bad as what it could be. It just keeps everybody safe and the product safe. So, yeah, I think lithium is going to, our next new model will be fireproof battery. So it's completely encapsulated so that it can't, even if the lithium decided that it needed to, die, it's completely enclosed, so nothing can happen. There's some of the really nice advancements for the safety aspect and the future of electric golf caddies with lithium. And also for the sheer fun of electric golf caddies as well.
Well, the main thing is we want to get more people, both men and women and kids out there playing, and we want them to be enjoying the game again. And I think, this gives them a much more relaxed enjoyment of playing golf, and again, not to knock the driving carts, but I find that the pace is very quick at times and it's not as enjoyable. You feel rushed all the time. And I think people just enjoy the walk. I mean, the golf courses are beautiful and you want to be out there, feeling like you're part of nature. And that's one of the very few sports that really allows you that opportunity. And I think that's why so many people gravitate. And it's, there's been a huge upsurge in the last decade or so of more and more women, not just at the professional level like the Epson or the LPGA and other tours, but just from an amateur standpoint, more and more women are being gravitated to the game. And they're going to look at a product like yours and think, yeah, I want that too. And I want the convenience of being able to walk and carry some, things along with me that I don't have to worry about schlepping around in a backpack or throwing it in the back of the golf court. I can just walk around and I can do that, and I can do it all day long. And it's going to tell me where I am on the golf course. It's going to do some great things. And I feel confident with that. So that's something that I think you're going to see is become more and more as more golfers of all stripes come into the game. But it's been very interesting. And again, I know there's a lot of things that we could have got into, but it's very difficult, obviously, when you don't have it in front of you. So we want to direct them. So where's the website? Where can they go to learn more information and size themselves up for one of your great electric caddies?
iGolf.com is definitely a great place to start for researching exactly what you need. So I highly recommend coming into our website. But you know what? To touch, the product, see it in action, I highly recommend talking to your golf professional. We really do support green grass and, the local clubs as well. And we've seen a lot of, green grass, accounts that are open that, we support your local golf club. But you can also go in and see it in some off-course retail stores as well. You've got your Galaxies, your Roger Dunn's, your Golf Marts. So, there's quite a wide variety of places, of course, depending on where you love to get your golf equipment. But, most of all, have a look around your golf club. And if somebody's got an MGI, go and ask them. Say, what do you think? And I could honestly guarantee that they're having a great experience. Even if, like, one little thing that, I don't know, they lost their drink holder, they know that we looked after them. And so I really do believe that our biggest advocates are our MGI owners, and I thank them all for that. We're on this ride together, and it's fantastic. And I've really enjoyed today. Thanks so much for your interest. And you know what? Kudos to you too with the Epson tour and supporting that tour. I too think it's awesome, and we love the juniors, and they're the bookend, and we're looking forward to going into the collegiate area and seeing what we can support that whole generation of golfers coming through, because it's so exciting, and it's the future.
It's the future of the game, and especially in the women's market. I mean, I've said this for many, many years now. I actually enjoy watching the ladies play more so than I do the men, because it's a more interesting game. It's more challenging, and it's not just this grip it and rip it mentality. It's just about having fun, and they just are more fun to play with too, to be out in the golf course. They just, they're much more humble. The egos are definitely put aside. So that's always makes it fun to do. But Miranda, thank you very much for joining me. I'm going to wrap up here now with the show, and then we'll part ways, but definitely we'll be in touch again real soon. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight to Golf Talk Live. It's been a pleasure. I want to have special thanks to some of my earlier guests, John Decker and John Hughes, for joining me on the Coach's Corner panel. And then also my very good friend, golf fitness professional Bob Forman, for joining me here on the fitness segment tonight. And then a special thank you to my featured guest of the evening, Miranda Turner, the CEO of MGI Golf. Again, go to mgigolf.com, and all of the information there that we talked about tonight and more is on their website. So make sure that you check that out. But thank you, everybody. And I will see you next week right here on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody, and have a great weekend.
Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed this week's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. We'd like to thank this week's Coach's Corner panel, and a special thank you to tonight's guest. Remember to join Ted every Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. Central on Golf Talk Live. And be sure to follow Ted on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're interested in being a guest on Golf Talk Live, send Ted an email at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.